everybody. Welcome back to the Hello Goddess podcast. I am your host, Mandy Dad Grace. I am a Reiki practitioner, a wellness lover, and a spiritual seeker. And today we have a special guest, Miss Vanessa Sophie. Vanessa Sophie is an Astro Branding coach, which is the mix of an astrologer and branding coach for spiritual leaders. She uses intuitive tools like astrology, human design, and numerology to help soulpreneurs understand and embrace their unique essence so that they can best show up in their business in a way that feels authentic and aligned to them, and shine so brightly in their brand that they magnetically attract their soul-aligned audience and convert them into paying clients. She has a background of 10 plus years in communication and marketing, 3 years of professional public speaking, and also 3 years of studying and practicing astrology. Different from the majority of astrologers in the Western Hemisphere, she recently changed her practice to use the Sidereal zodiac, which has been a major shift from the way that the modern age knows and uses astrology. So without further ado, let's welcome Vanessa Sophie. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to my podcast, Hello Goddess. Today, I'm so blessed to receive one of my new friends. She is Vanessa. So if you were listening earlier, I was introducing her, but I would love if Vanessa would introduce herself to the world.
Hi, everyone. Well, I am Vanessa Sophie, and I'm an astrologer and branding coach for spiritual entrepreneurs.
Beautiful. I love what you do. It's so inspiring, so interesting. Me and Vanessa, we met on social media. It's such a beautiful thing that we can create businesses and friendships and connections on social media with people that are like-minded. And when I saw what she does, I thought it was so unique and cool and interesting that I wanted to invite her on my podcast. So I'm really happy to have her today with me. So maybe you could start by telling us your story. Like, how did you get to where you are now?
Well, I think just like a lot of people that are in the entrepreneurship world, for me, I've always had this sense of wanting to be independent and do my own thing. And when you know it and you have gifts to offer and you want to do things that you feel passionate about, that's always been part of my journey, and I just didn't know exactly how it would look. And I've worked my whole life in branding, communication, and marketing, this side of things. And it really came to me when I was always doing branding just for myself because I had so many passions. I had like a website at some point because I wanted to do motivational speaking, and then I was doing photography, and then, you know, whatever, like when I went to travel, I started a vlog. Like I was always doing these things. And after I had my spiritual awakening, I was connecting more and more with spiritual entrepreneurs, energy healers, and people in our industry. And a lot of them, what I realized is that they have beautiful gifts to offer to the world, but don't necessarily know how to promote themselves. You know, like they're not always business people. And that's the piece that I had that I wanted to bring, because I know what it feels like when you know you have gifts to offer and you know you have a message to share, but you just don't know how. You don't know how to be heard, and you don't know how to put it out there. So that's really what I wanted to help people with. And simultaneously, I was becoming obsessed with astrology, and I've spent 3 years like studying it hardcore, and until it just clicked that the two were merging so well together, because branding is all about branding yourself. You know, a lot of us solopreneurs, when you're a healer or a guide or a coach or a mentor, you're selling yourself, you're promoting yourself and who you are. And for that to happen, you need to know who you are, and you need to know what makes you you and what makes you unique.
Yes.
So that's what astrology is telling me. So as I was doing readings for people, I was realizing the gift in helping someone understand themselves and understand the codes that the universe gave them. That's how I see astrology. It's the code that the universe gave you to, you know, it's your DNA code basically given by the universe. And so that's really where I merged the two, because I realized the power of helping of me understanding the people that I'm helping, and also them understanding themselves and what makes them so unique, and then how to communicate this in their brand, in their business, so that they can really show up and promote themselves in the way that feels true to them. So that's a little bit of the journey that led me here.
I find it so fascinating that all of your past experiences came together to create what you're doing right now. It's like it was meant to be, like the universe wants you to do this work. And that's why it's beautiful. I know what you mean, especially for people that are in the spiritual field. A lot of us, myself included, so I might have to hire you at some point. We have a hard time with like social media strategy or marketing and all these things. So it's good to have that, because otherwise you can't reach the people that you want to reach, right?
Yeah.
So you do Astro Branding is what you call, right?
Yeah.
Explain to us a little bit more about that.
Yeah. Well, honestly, so Astro for astrology, and then branding for branding strategy, and that's how I merged the two. And when I say Astro, it's really, for me, it represents the code that the stars gave you, that the universe gave you. And so the majority of what I do, I would say probably 80-90% is astrology. I also sometimes use a little bit of human design. So a lot of people know about human design and numerology. So I've recently came across numerology as well. So whatever intuitive tool that I'm feeling called to do, like for me to just understand the person better, that's the astro part. That's the helping unlock the codes to someone's personality and their gifts and what they're here to do, because you will get this sense of what they're here to do and what they're here to learn in their chart and in those codes. And so the other side of that, the branding side of that, is how to communicate that and reflect that in their brand. So what are their gifts and what makes them, you know, what are their, I call them like their unique essence. And that's what I help them brand, is their unique essence, so that when they show up on social media, a lot of the biggest fear that I hear, especially for people like in the spiritual community, they're so heart-led that they want to feel good when they show up. They don't want to feel fake. They don't want to feel salesy. They don't want to feel pushy. That's the biggest fear of the spiritual community. And so that's why the branding strategies that I use are really here to make you feel authentic in the way that you show up. And that when we look at your brand, we really see the core of your unique essence and what makes you you and what makes you special and unique. So that's Astro Branding to me.
That's really beautiful. Would you say that every single person on Earth has a different birth chart? Is that how it works, or?
Yeah, so that's interesting. I would say it could be possible that someone would have a similar chart.
Okay.
For it to be like the exact same degree and everything the exact same, it would have to be, you know, someone that is born at the exact same time and the same place, and you know, so like two babies that are born at the same hospital at the same time, like would be very similar. Twins is why they're very similar. So they would have a chart maybe with different tweaks, but the thing though is that your name also has an energy. So you would have, you know, that's why they don't have the exact same life, because they don't have the same name. So for someone to have the exact same name and the exact same chart, like that, I believe would be impossible. And not only that, but it's also your psychology that takes a piece of that. So how you were raised, you know, what trauma you experience and things like that will also play into that.
Right.
So that's, yeah, to answer your question, it would technically be possible, but it would be very, very rare.
Right. Okay, that makes sense. So for total beginners, when it comes to astrology, like myself, like for the longest time, I only knew about my sun sign, Taurus. And then I learned lately that it was moon Aquarius and a rising Pisces.
Okay.
That's pretty much all I know about my birth chart. But what would you give for advice for people that are total beginners in this field?
Yeah, I love this question. So I always say that, your sun sign is literally the tip of the iceberg. It's about maybe 10% of your whole birth chart, because there's so much to take into consideration. So when people tell me, oh, well, I don't resonate with my zodiac sign, so I don't know that I believe in astrology, I'm like, sit down. We need to talk. Because there's so much. There's just, not only there's the position of the planets and all the planets in the solar system, and not even that, but just all the asteroids, and just there's the moon plays a role into that. All of this, all these bodies basically that are cosmically, they're affecting us in different ways, and they have different energies that they're imprinting on us and influencing us as they move around our energy. And so that plays a role, and not only that, but also how they interact with each other. So sometimes you have Mars, for example, that is the planet of action and aggression, and Mars is super fiery. But on the opposite side of that, you have Saturn that is very strict, very slow paced, has hard boundaries. So you can have Mars that is, supposed to be super aggressive, and then you have Saturn that kind of comes and bullies Mars in your chart. And so that's why you may not have a Mars that is very strong in your chart. So even though Mars is supposed to give you these abilities, if it's not in a good placement, then you're not going to have the same Mars energy than someone else might have. So that's why there's many things to take into consideration in your chart that makes you different. So that's why not one Taurus is going to be the same, not one Gemini is going to be the same, because there's so much more to it.
That makes a lot of sense. And I think that explains why people might be like reluctant to believe in this, because they don't have the full picture, right? Like you're talking right now. And it's so fascinating to hear you speak about this. You seem to be very knowledgeable on the topic. But yeah, so what I'm getting
that's what I do.
Exactly, yeah. It's so cool that you created your career around your passion. That's amazing. So what I'm getting is that when we're born, there's like an imprint based on like the positions of different planets and moons and everything. Does that energy keep affecting us our whole lives, like, or is it just on the moment we're born?
So yes, that's another excellent question. I literally have on my whiteboard written here, astrology is imprinted energy.
Right.
And so to answer your question, it is, your birth chart is not going to change. That's what you were born with, and that's not going to change. It does change in certain situations. For example, someone who travels, they will have a different energy being influenced at the location that they're in. So that's going to be influenced, but the code of the birth chart is not going to change. The other thing is also the current movements of the planets are going to be affecting you, and it's going to be affecting your birth chart as well. So that's why that's how they create the horoscope. So if Mars is doing an aspect to your sun, for example, you might have ego problems at that time, because Mars is currently aspecting you and influencing you in a certain way that it makes you react in a certain way. So this influence will move around for sure.
Makes sense. All right, so I wanted to ask you as well, when it comes to astrology, what is a common misconception about astrology that you would like to set straight?
There's a lot.
Yeah.
Well, one of the main things is definitely what I just talked about, the fact that people stop at the zodiac sign, or even the big threes, like the rising, the moon, and the sun. People are like, oh, well, those are my big threes, and that's what it is, and they don't really go deeper. But there's so much more to it, and that's just a fraction of it. So that's definitely a big misconception, that people will think that, oh, well, if I don't resonate with it, then astrology must be bullshit.
Yeah. They don't go further than that. That makes sense.
Okay. So it's misunderstood in that way. I would say that's the biggest one, is stopping at this level when there's so much more to it.
Okay, and I think it's so beautiful that you connect all of this to branding, because I'm sure you're helping a lot of people out there create their own business around their personal essence, which is unique to every single person on this earth. And people respond to authenticity. Like, when I started going online, I wanted to like emulate other people because I didn't think being myself was good enough. So I think that it's a beautiful thing that the work that you're doing right now with people in astrology and branding is, I commend you for that. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
So before we started recording, we were talking about the difference between, basically what we're talking about right now is tropical astrology.
Yes.
So you did a recent switch. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yes, thank you so much. That's been a very interesting journey because especially in the Western Hemisphere, you know, in America, tropical is very dominant, and that's the astrology that most people know. You know, if I assume you're a Taurus, so you must be born in like end of April or beginning of May, like until like mid-May-ish. So that's what people think is the Taurus season, basically. And what I've learned recently is that there's different types of looking at the zodiac, and tropical astrology actually is based on the calendar and the seasons. So every year we start Aries season at the same date, and Aries is the zero degree of Aries is the beginning of the zodiac. And so that's why when it's Aries season, that's the beginning of the astrology year. So this the astrology new year, and it's every year at spring equinox, so I believe March 21st-ish. And that's never changing. You know, every year it's always the same thing. And so that it corresponds with the season. So that's tropical astrology. And that's what 90% of astrologers use here, and I would say use. Now, why I've made the switch is that I discovered the Sidereal zodiac, which is ancient astrology. This is what they used back in, you know, ancient times. And it's actually based on the true astronomical placements of the planets.
Nice.
And the thing with that is that when you look at the sky right now, the planets are actually not where they say they are in tropical astrology. So for example, we're in Sagittarius season right now, they say in tropical astrology. But if you look at the sky, you would actually see with your own eyes that the planets are actually in Scorpio. So we would be actually in Scorpio season.
Okay.
And that's happened because over an extended period of time, the Earth wobbles and the sky, the fixed stars, are moving around the Earth. So it's not a lot. It's about 1 degree every 72 years. But after 2,000 years,
it makes a difference
by a lot, and it makes a big difference. And now all the planets are about 25 degrees backwards every single year.
Okay.
So that means that when you look at the true astronomical placements of the planets, where they were at the time of your birth, they're actually all 25 degrees backward than from what you know.
Wow. Okay.
So for me, I've taught my whole life that I was a Gemini, and I was trying to fit in the Gemini box of I need to be charming, I'm witty, and you know, all those things. And I was like, well, I guess I am those things. So I kind of incorporated that as part of my ego and putting the label on this. But when I started looking at my chart in Sidereal, I realized that I was actually a Taurus.
Oh.
And my first reaction, I completely denied it. I was like, no, I'm not boring. I'm not like this. I'm super smart and all of that. But I had a mentor that stepped in, and he was like, yeah, but if you look at your chart, you actually have displacements that makes you really curious and even like a deeper knowledge than a Gemini would have. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then he was like, you're super grounded. You're super stable.
Yeah.
And one of my best friends, who actually, he became a Gemini, and he moves all the time. He's super quick, will never stop. He's like, you know, almost like ADHD. And I was like, he's a Gemini. I'm not a Gemini. And that really started hitting home for me. And that's where I really went down a rabbit hole. I researched all about the history of tropical versus sidereal. And look, I have like about 90 charts in my database. And I went through all of my friends, all my family, like everyone that I knew, and switched to sidereal. And it just clicked. I was like, this is the true zodiac.
A lot more accurate.
Yeah. And a lot of people are having a major awakening. People are messaging me from everywhere, people that I've never talked to before. And they're like, Sidereal speaks to me. Like, this is the real me. And everyone is realizing that they've been put into this box, trying to make their ego fit in the box because that's what they've been told to do or to be. And now they're like, this isn't me. Then this is the new me. And it's been really, it's only been 2 months now. It's been absolutely life-changing for myself and for many people around me. Yeah.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense because I never really resonated with Taurus energy myself.
There you go.
I was kind of like skeptical of astrology because I didn't resonate with that sign. But I want to do more research with you and see what the thing is for sure.
Yeah, that's what I hear all the time. Everyone are reaching out to me and they're like, wow, I never resonated with this. And there's also opposite to that. There's some people that are having resistance to it. Yeah. And they look at their sidereal chart and they're like, I feel like it speaks to me, but they have so much ego attachment to their tropical chart. And what I want to say with that is the importance of what I said before. You have to take the whole chart into consideration, because a lot of people are like moving from Aries to Pisces, for example, and they feel like they have a lot of fire and they're like, well, I'm not a water sign. What is this? But then if you look at the whole chart, they have a really powerful Mars, which is super fiery in their chart, but they don't look at that. So that's where the importance of looking at the whole chart plays such a big role, is that you can't stop at the sun sign.
Yeah, it's very intricate. And I mean, anybody listening or watching to this, go hire Vanessa to this, because she's very knowledgeable and she knows what she's talking about. It's very intricate. So yeah, it's a field of itself. Before we go into the last questions, I wanted to ask you if you have anything you wanted to share about your work to the listeners.
If I wanted to share anything about my work
that you haven't talked about yet. Or a message you would have to people that are listening.
Yeah, there's something that was really alive in me this week, because I've been thinking back as to all the astrology readings that I've done and putting that into branding. I realized how I had so many people that had a certain shame or certain parts in themselves that they didn't understand, or they had the desire to be seen and to do something, to follow their passions, and they were intimidated or for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And what I'm really realizing, and with the work that I do, what I value so much is helping people realize that you are unique. There's only one of you, and we see that more and more with astrology. Like there's not two charts that are the same, and not two energies that are the same. And really, like the world needs all of the snowflakes. Like everyone is a snowflake, and we need all of it, because there's a reason why you're here. And when you have this desire of pursuing a passion, it's been placed in your mind for a reason. It's been placed in your heart for a reason.
I always say that, Vanessa, like it's so
right.
Yes.
And so a lot of people have this desire and they're afraid of putting it out there, because they're like, well, why me? Why would I be better than anyone? There's already tons of healers out there. There's already tons of coaches and astrologers out there. Yes, but there's only one of you.
Exactly.
And you're going to speak in a way that is going to speak to this person specifically. They need to hear it from you.
Right.
And that's why I do what I do, is because I want to help them be seen and known for that, because it needs to be put out there. And maybe they just don't know how. They just don't have the resources or the knowledge to do all of that, because we each have our unique gifts, like not everyone can be a specialist, like a marketer.
Right.
But that's what I've been put here to do. So
that's beautiful. Since we're going into a deep topic, I wanted to ask you if you could go back in the past and talk to your younger self, young Vanessa, what would you tell her?
The first thing is I would say one of the main things is to surround yourself by the right people, and to realize that your environment has such a big influence on you. and surrounding yourself by people who are willing to bring you up and who are here to bring value in your life, and where it's mutual, where you bring value in each other's life, is absolutely life-changing. And every time that I see someone who are surrounding themselves by friends that they don't really know why they're friends with them, but you don't realize how much they have an influence on you, that's what's holding us back so much. So that's what I would tell myself, is to know the importance of who you surround yourself with.
Beautiful. To be more intentional with your circle.
Yeah.
Sure. Beautiful answer. I wanted to know as well, what is your definition of a goddess? It's a big one.
I would say that's a woman who embraces all that she is in every way, in the most beautiful ways, in the most vulnerable ways, in the shadow ways, and not afraid to embrace that and to show that, and to show up in the world knowing who she is.
Almost
not letting anyone tell you otherwise, not letting anyone tell you who you are, but knowing who you are. And no one has power, no one has more power over you than you yourself has power over you.
Beautiful answer. Thank you so much. I'm so blessed that you came onto my podcast and to share your gift, and I hope that you get more clients out of this, and I know that my listeners are going to love this episode. Very insightful. So if anybody wanted to book a session with you, where could they find you? Or if you have any social media accounts you want to share?
Well, I'm very active on Instagram, so I would say that's the main platform I use, and I'm at I am Vanessa Sophie, and you can just find me on my website, just stellarvanessa.com, and right now it's linking to my Linktree, but I will have a website eventually. So just find stellarvanessa.com, and you'll find me there.
Beautiful. And I'm going to write all of that in the description if you want to just copy paste that and reach out and connect with her. She creates a lot of beautiful, insightful content on social media. So I highly encourage you guys to check her out and her work. Thank you so much, Vanessa.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. That was amazing. I loved our conversation, and wishing you a beautiful evening.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.